There is a secret to bodybuilding, and it's not some designer's steroid or some Bulgarian training regimen. There is a secret to bodybuilding, and today we're going to talk about what it is. Today I want to talk about the only true secret in bodybuilding. It is something that everyone's aware of, that is a component of bodybuilding, to be really, really good at it. But I don't think many people understand how in-depth it goes. And that secret is genetics. Now I know a lot of you are saying, well, who doesn't know that, Dave? You have to have good genetics to build a good physique. But what I'm saying is that term genetics is, in my opinion, an umbrella title that covers a lot of different things that people don't even think about when they think about genetics. Everyone thinks about, obviously, one of the most common ways in which we look at genetics is bone structure. You want to have shoulders that are wider than the waist. You want to have narrow hips and things of that nature. You want to have smallish bones, so you have small joints and hopefully swelling muscle bellies, which is another component of genetics. You know, your attachment points, where your muscles attach on the bone, how full they are, how low they go, things of that nature. That's all included in what we call genetics. And that's what most people think of when they think of a bodybuilder who's genetically blessed. Look at Big Ramy, how wide his shoulders are. But he doesn't have the most narrow hips or waist, but they're much narrower than his shoulders. And then as far as muscle belly is concerned, they're all great except for his calves. But you know, anybody who's great in this sport, who is marginal to great, is going to have some or all of these genetic traits. But there are a lot of other things that I consider as being genetic. For instance, hunger levels. If you can't eat a shit ton of food, you're not going to be able to grow. I don't care how nice your muscles look, how good your bone structure is. If you can't eat enough food to put yourself in enough of a surplus to grow a huge amount of muscle, you're never going to be a great bodybuilder. You know, ghrelin and leptin and those hormones, things that control your hunger and your ability to take in a whole bunch of food and then absorb it, is a genetic trait, just like any other. So if you're coming to the table and you have good bone structure, good muscle bellies, you know, nice skin, all good looks, and a lot of things that make up good genetics, but you can only eat like a parsley sprig at a time, you're not going to make it in this sport. You're just not. So another thing is what I just touched on, your body's ability to take up that food. A lot of people can eat that much food, but their body's not going to absorb or utilize it and send it to the target tissue. And that's another genetic trait as well. So someone who can eat a lot and then absorb a lot is someone who's really got a good advantage in bodybuilding. You have to lift a ton of weight to be big, just like you have to eat a lot to be big. Your joints, your tendons and ligaments need to be resilient. They need to have a good base, a good foundation, collagen. And you know, if you're falling apart at 25 because you've been lifting heavy for 10 years, are you really going to make it to 35, to when you might, you know, be on an Olympia stage? You're not if you break down ahead of schedule. So that's another thing that I consider being genetic. Your body's ability to take in and utilize PEDs. Oh my God, the variance among the population with who takes what and how they respond, the difference between them is humongous. We've all seen guys who have gone on like 4 or 5 different compounds and literally nothing happens. Conversely, we've all seen guys who go on like 250 milligrams of test and blow up. Is their gear better than their gear? Probably not. But what is different is their body's ability to take it up on a cellular level and move it to the target tissue and have that target tissue receptor site take it up and use it. That is to say, you cannot assess someone's potential when they're natural just because they're a great natural bodybuilder. That does not mean that person's going to be a hyper responder at all. They may be a great natural bodybuilder, go on gear, and not much else happens. Or you can be like Ronnie Coleman, was a great natural bodybuilder who went on gear and everything happened. There's a genetic variance with this. Conversely, you could have someone who busts their ass as a natural and nothing happens. They don't really look like anything. So you would say, well, you know what? You don't really have good genetics. And then they go in a little bit of gear and they blow up. Great example of that was, Kevin LeBron. Kevin was tiny in off season, and he started off as a skinny little thing. And he would take half of the year off from gear and lifting and everything, and then just blow up and get in the Olympia and place second and third. So he's a great example of a hyper responder. But that's also genetics. Another trait you need to have that is arguably genetics, but I think it is patience. You can't not have patience and do this sport, because it's not a 1 month, 2 month, 6 month, 1 year. These people work for decades at creating a world-class physique. So if you get in it and you don't see right away shit happening, and you're not patient enough to see it through, which also ties into loving what you do. But a lot of people love what they do, but if they don't see it happening fast, they quit or they change their protocol before they should have changed their protocol. Patience is huge with this. You need to have, and I believe it's genetic, you need to have a genetically patient demeanor to get this done in the long haul and to be great. Another thing that's genetic is what foods you like to eat. Food preferences is genetic. It's well known, and it's a scientific fact, that certain people can taste certain components of certain foods, and that's what makes one person like something and another person not like something. A very well-known example of this is cilantro. Some people love it. Some people, it tastes like poison to them. So you have to take that into consideration when you're talking about becoming a great bodybuilder. So if you don't like a lot of the foods that we eat as bodybuilders, you may have a really difficult time becoming a great bodybuilder. Another one, and this is obvious, is pain tolerance. How much pain can you withstand? If you're a little sissy when it comes to pain, and there's pain all through this sport. Needles, the lifting, the lactic acid, there's pain night and day. If you're not someone who can tolerate a lot of pain, you pick the wrong sport. So I guess the take-home message is here that genetics is the secret of bodybuilding. Good genetics entails a lot of different components. A lot of different physical and mental traits go into your entire genetic makeup. Whether or not you have all these things is not that important, just as long as you can, that's not true at all. I think it is important. I don't think you'll make it. I don't want to get disingenuous here. All right, no, I'll say this. I'll say I have a positive. So with this in mind, make a list of all these things. Check off the boxes of things that you have. See how prodigious your genetics are. But keep in mind one thing. Don't be discouraged if you can't check off all these boxes. At the end of the day, it matters, but it's not the end-all be-all to becoming great. Because you can take those ones that you do have and just really capitalize on those and take control where you can take control, and you can still become great. You may not be the greatest of all time, hey, but even they couldn't check off all the boxes.